Disney's Peter Pan has been loved by families for generations. Unfortunately, this animated classic hasn't aged entirely well over the years. Much of this goes over kids' heads, but older viewers might be surprised by some scenes. For good or bad, here are things that only adults notice in Peter Pan. As a child, it feels perfectly innocent to fantasize about some magical being coming to your window to take you away on adventures in faraway lands. As an adult, however, the thought of strange boys visiting underage daughters via bedroom windows is much less charming. When Wendy claims Peter Pan has been to the nursery before and must surely be coming again because she'd found his shadow, her mother seems a bit perplexed. Her father, on the other hand, brushes it off as childish fiddle-faddle and mocks his wife's concern.
Goodness gracious, whatever shall we do?
However, had the same conversation been with more literal or protective guardians, Peter likely would have found a father waiting with his shotgun in that nursery instead of a pining, unattended Wendy. At the very least, it would have been wise to leave the family dog Nana in the house with the kids rather than tied up outside. On top of that, the grown mind can't help but question Mr. and Mrs. Darling's decision to leave their young children home alone for hours without any sort of adult supervision. If you're not going to have your dog protect your children while you're out partying, at least find a human to babysit. Fairies are some of the most iconic creatures in the worlds of fantasy, but their disposition varies widely between sources. In some instances, they're benevolent and wise, like Cinderella's fairy godmother, while other portrayals of the magical beings show a much darker and malevolent nature. Peter Pan's sidekick Tinkerbell seems to lie somewhere in the middle. Tink displays a mean, jealous streak the moment she learns Wendy will be accompanying them back to Neverland, going so far as to make an attempt on her life without Peter's knowledge. After abandoning Wendy while flying to Peter's hideout, Hangman's Tree, Tinkerbell tells the awaiting Lost Boys that he gave orders to shoot down a terrible Wendy bird spotted in the skies. Sadly, the Lost Boys follow Tinkerbell's instructions and attack her, but Peter manages to fly over just in time to save Wendy from crashing down onto the jagged rocks below. When Peter asks Tinkerbell if she's guilty or not guilty of attempting to get Wendy shot down, she has an honest and disturbing response.
Guilty? But don't you know you might have killed her?
After being banished for her malicious plot, Tink makes things even worse by turning on Peter, disclosing his hideout to his arch-nemesis Captain Hook. Thankfully, she redeems herself in the end by saving Peter from a bomb that Hook disguises as a gift, but still, it doesn't excuse Tink's attempt to plant Wendy 6 feet under. Being a child forever sounds pretty liberating on the surface, but when examined more deeply, it definitely has a dark side. While infantile behavior brings carefree fun and spontaneity, it can also cultivate a short-sighted and selfish nature. This is exhibited time and time again by Peter Pan, who repeatedly puts others in danger thanks to his immature actions and motives. From the moment he's introduced, he constantly makes everything about himself. As a kid, it's easy to mistake Peter's decision to take Wendy and her brothers to Neverland as a form of liberation and a heroic rescue from growing up, which George tells Wendy she'll have to do starting the next day by moving out of the nursery with her brothers and into her own room. However, more mature viewers are apt to note that Peter only invites them to Neverland because Wendy's imminent relocation would put an end to her adventure stories, and Peter truly loves these tales because they're about him. But the character's dark side doesn't stop there. Peter also treats all the females in his life like trinkets rather than people, quickly moving on to the next shiny thing in front of him, like when he leaves Wendy behind for Tiger Lily. To top it off, he occasionally drops misogynistic insights and demands that haven't aged well at all.
Girls talk too much.
Yes, girls talk too... Oh.
Well, get on with it, girl.
My name is Wendy.
When watching Peter Pan, adult viewers can't help but notice disturbing levels of racism in the classic film. It's so bad that Disney Plus even added a disclaimer before the film, warning viewers about, quote, negative depictions and or mistreatment of people or cultures. Not only does this film depict Native Americans in horrifically prejudiced ways, the movie is carpet-bombed with racist slurs against them. Everyone from innocent children and the heroic Pan to the villainous Captain Hook casually speak of them as savages and much worse. The poor treatment of Native Americans and other First Nations people culminates in a sing-along titled What Makes the Red Man Red, which is loaded with cultural appropriation and racist stereotypes. Early in the film, we learn that Captain Hook has a perfectly viable reason for being so upset with Peter Pan. After all, he's responsible for Hook having a hook in the first place. During a skirmish with the villain, Peter cut off Hook's hand and fed it to a nearby crocodile, who then developed a taste for the pirate leader's flesh. As a result, the crocodile constantly hunts Captain Hook and follows him around Neverland, hoping for another nibble. Luckily, the crocodile also swallowed a clock, so he can be easily detected by the distinctive sound of ticking emanating from his tummy. Hook's encounters with the crocodile make for some of the funniest moments in the film, but it also stirs up some questions within the discerning adult mind. Specifically, one can't help but wonder why Hook doesn't just organize a group of his men to execute the beast so he no longer has to live in perpetual fear. He's a badass pirate captain in charge of a ship loaded with dangerous men, cannons, and other weapons. He should put those to good use against the crocodile so he can move on with his life. Plus, the croc doesn't seem to be too elusive or quick-moving. However, like most kids, adults should overlook this leap in logic and enjoy the timeless comedy of these two fighting it out. An uncomfortable aspect of Peter Pan comes into focus when analyzing the questionable relationship between Peter and Wendy. The two technically meet for the first time after he breaks into the nursery window at night while her parents are out, which is unnerving enough. However, Peter had to have been there at least once before while she was sleeping, considering Wendy found his misplaced shadow in the nursery, which definitely amps up the creep factor. Then things get even more uncomfortable. While considering the weighty decision of whether she should go with a stranger to a strange land, Wendy wonders aloud what her mother will think. Peter, being unwise in the ways of the world, asks Wendy what a mother is, to which she replies,
A mother's someone who loves and cares for you and tells you stories.
Good. You can be our mother.
Moments after this statement, Wendy declares she's so excited to see Peter that she's going to give him a kiss, and not in the motherly sort of way. This has some weird Freudian connotations to say the least, and it sets a bit of an odd undertone between the two throughout the rest of the film. In the latter half of the movie, Wendy sings a touching song called Your Mother and Mine. It's a sweet melody praising motherly love, soothing enough to lull her rowdy brothers and the Lost Boys into a relaxed, blissful state. Wendy's song even brings the pirates to tears. One pirate in particular, Mr. Shmee, Captain Hook's comical bosun, is shown crying while pulling up his shirt to reveal a classic mom tattoo on his chest, making this one of the film's more memorable and humorous moments. Even tough guys love their mamas, and when watching this scene as an adult, it genuinely pulls on the heartstrings and makes Shmee's actions far more relatable. As a kid, it's easy to take songs about mothers for granted, but once you've moved out on your own, your mom isn't as easily accessible, and distance makes the heart grow fonder. More than a few adults watching this movie probably found themselves getting misty during this touching tribute to mothers everywhere. They say you should never meet your heroes, and for those who idolize mermaids, this is particularly true while watching Peter Pan. Mermaids are generally depicted as friendly, benevolent creatures, especially in such films as Splash or The Little Mermaid. However, Neverland's resident merfolk have darker natures, which Wendy learns to her detriment while exploring the island with Peter. As it turns out, Peter is quite the ladies' man, and Wendy finds herself vying for his attention while he catches up with fangirling mermaids in a Neverland lagoon. Once they notice Wendy, however, the mermaids switch from flirtatious vixens to jealous tyrants. While Peter looks on laughing, the mermaids attempt to pull her under the water. This is the second time Wendy nearly meets her fate at the hands of one of Peter's female friends, and like Tinkerbell, the mermaids own up to their true intentions. In sociopathic-like fashion, the mermaids acknowledge exactly what they were trying to do.
We were only trying to drown her.
After losing his temper early in the film, George Darling takes his frustrations out on Nana, the canine nanny, by banishing the poor dog outside to her lonely, drafty doghouse. It's sadly ironic as she's the least chaotic and most helpful member of the entire family. This is extra cruel considering she's not just any dog. Nana thinks of herself as a nursemaid and that she belongs inside watching over the children. She does all the things a traditional caretaker would, modifying some activities to accommodate her lack of opposable thumbs. It's hard not to marvel at her incredible dexterity and ability to carry out a multitude of domestic tasks. Even professionally trained dogs could learn a thing or two from Nana's extensive skill set, and yet the Darling family seems to take her entirely for granted. For example, while George is angrily pacing about, making a scene over his outfit, Nana continually tries to clean up and care for the kids in the background. Nana is so loyal that when George struggles to find the rope to tie her up outside, she pauses mid-banishment to find it for him. While she's just another humorous character for kids to enjoy, many adults watching the film probably wish they could have their own Nana around the house. Although some of Peter Pan's content hasn't aged too well, one of its spin-off movies more than stands the test of time. Directed by Steven Spielberg, 1991's Hook imagines a life where Peter falls in love with Wendy's granddaughter, Moira, and leaves Neverland to start a family of his own. It's a heartwarming fantasy featuring a stellar cast, including Robin Williams as Peter Pan, Dustin Hoffman as Captain Hook, and Julia Roberts as Tinkerbell. Ironically, the once carefree boy grows into an incredibly stiff-necked workaholic with a fear of heights. He's also too busy climbing the corporate ladder to spend any quality time with his kids. But daily life is interrupted for Peter's family when Captain Hook kidnaps his children and takes them back to Neverland. Peter is forced to face his past in order to save his family's future. In the process, he remembers what's truly important in life, reconnects with his inner child, and finds redemption with his loved ones. It's a grand adventure exploring a boldly reimagined Neverland, but it's also loaded with fun callbacks to the 1953 classic. Granted, critics weren't especially fond of it when it first hit theaters, but nevertheless, Hook is a joyous, family-friendly ride. Plus, the special effects still hold up, the musical score is excellent, and best of all, the movie doesn't contain any of the outdated and cringy moments that only adults would notice from the original animated version. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about your favorite classic movies are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.